this time around, but in part it's because I'm your HR director and assistant superintendent, and I am not a good HR director. With an organization of over 550 people, that's not great. Like if I could go back in time, we probably have gone a different direction. So those three always come out. A new curveball this year is let's pay people less. And we'll not only pay them a lot less, let's pay them less forever, and that will fix it. I'm happy to speak to that. In the world of bad ideas, that one really stands out as exceptionally bad in my mind, and I can speak to that. I think the real question at hand should be, and it's a hard question, don't get me wrong, do we take that path of investment and with that have a successful override and have to increase taxes? I fully understand that's not easy for everybody. If the answer to the question at hand is no, I think my job is to make it clear what that impact will be on the schools and on the town. And the fact that it's not reversible, that's a fact, needs to be clearly stated by me, if not many other people. In a little bit, I'm going to talk more about this, but there is without a doubt a real cost associated with both options. Like on the surface level, I think people say, oh, can increase taxes, that's a cost, or vote no and not have a cost. I can assure you there's a cost for both options. So for the FY27 level service budget, we have four main cost drivers. Two that jump out, not big surprises, are out-of-district tuitions going up by $1.2 million. About half of that, about 600,000, a little more, is due to move-ins. We've had 5 students move into the district since July 1st. They moved in as out-of-district placements, and we incur that cost. Those students are getting exactly what they need. Nobody's at fault, but financially, we own that. The other half, this gets a little confusing, but in FY26, we made reductions and we spent out circuit breaker. So what we had in reserves, the rule of thumb across the state is you want to have 1 year of circuit breaker in reserves. For us, that's 1.5 million. So because we had to, we spent that out last year. We don't have any reserves left. But in spending it out, last year, we spent about 700,000 for like more than we normally would for out-of-district tuitions. With that reserve gone, that 700,000 falls to the operational budget. So 600,000 in new out-of-district and a little over 600,000 was, obviously we can't spend out reserves 2 years in a row.
So Jay, was the 700 the increase last year? Is that what you're saying?
No, we used savings to cover it last year. We can't cover it this year.
Right, but the 700,000 that we had to use savings for
was an increase
was
last
the
year.
increase
Correct.
from the prior year.
Yep, that's right. On the bottom, 2 lesser increases: transportation. We have that includes special education. That's a somewhat modest increase, and the only position we're adding or hoping to add back for the coming FY27 year is that HR director position. Salaries is our biggest cost driver. That's always going to be our biggest cost driver. That goes for every school district in Massachusetts. We are over 80% people. That's shouldn't be a real shocker. That's our biggest cost driver. At last Friday's select board meeting, you may have heard research was brought up around teacher retention and happiness, if you will. And it was mentioned that among the factors researched, teacher pay is low, relatively, the word was low on the list. I looked at that research, and that's absolutely true. When you're talking apples to apples and competitive wage has already been met. For example, a teacher may be in Westboro looking at a job in Northborough where they're very competitive pay regionally and even statewide. They could look and see that the pay is pretty close. What could decide it, real factors, are going to be teacher autonomy, leadership, school culture, working conditions. Makes sense. None of that counts if you don't pay a competitive wage. we
If you
don't
mind
pay.
interrupting you
Yep.
1 second. Greg does have his hand up.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, it's just back on the previous slide. I noticed that the increase in out of district tuition is almost exactly what our budget deficit is this year.
Right.
So if we didn't have that increase, then our almost $2 million in salary increase would be staying within our means, because that would mean we'd have a balanced budget without those tuition increases. So.
Yes, very good point. Thanks, Greg. So going back to this slide, looking at that research, key factor left out of the discussion is a competitive wage. We don't currently, despite our best efforts, pay a particularly competitive wage. This is where our teachers sit in comparison to abutting districts and area districts. The red column that represents the state average. The only district that we beat is Oxford. And Oxford is well known to not pay well, despite their best interests or best efforts as well. We have fought tooth and nail and will continue to try to pay our teachers a competitive wage. I can speak at length about this. It impacts us almost daily, it feels like, in terms of hiring and trying to retain staff. These, just so you know, I didn't cherry pick any of this. I started with the districts on the left. Those are all districts that physically abut Grafton. I got a complaint that it's too small of a sample, so I used the comparison communities from that the Grafton Sustainability Commission used back in 2020. So I think it's a very more than fair comparison.
Real quick, Mark now has his hand raised. Mark.
Hey, Jay, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Putting on your HR hat, because you're, as you said, you're really good at that. What's the turnover? What's our retention rate? How often are we replacing teachers?
Thankfully, it's not like throughout the school year. We do lose paras throughout the school year. Understandably, we did increase our paraprofessional, which are their key members of our staff. Last year we worked hard. They were making 17, starting at 17 an hour. We were able to move that range from 22 to 26. Westboro and Shrewsbury, their top step is $10 more per hour, not day. So when something opens up, understandably, there's movement in that sense. I'm certainly concerned about this spring. Every 5 years I get more worried, because understandably before April 7th, we will speak to everyone who's on that reduction list. They're all excellent. They're all understandably going to go and look for positions. Part of our responsibility is to support them looking. And then we don't have a resolution until late May. And by that time, the bulk of the initial wave of hiring is already completed. So it's a challenge every 5 years, without a doubt.
So a follow up to that is, so April 7th, you have to notify them because you got to, that's contractual, whatever you have to do. And then a bunch of teachers get other jobs and they leave, and then the override passes. Right. You're behind the 8 ball to hire in time for the fall, right?
Yep, no question about it. And one of the things, Mark, that does help us retain staff, and we've got an excellent staff, is the fact that currently we have good class sizes. We have excellent principals. We're able, the results we're getting are indicative and reflective of a strong school system. Like, despite our spending,
question,
we have a really good system. You kind of toss that out the window. We don't have economy of scale. I'll talk a little bit about class sizes. They go up significantly. Of course, people are going to look. We have fewer programming, fewer supports. That's just how it works. We hire, who we do hire is very often from districts that are dysfunctional in the area.
So one last question. What's the morale like with the teaching staff right now when they hear town leaders expressing that they're overpaid and we have to cut and we have to be harder in negotiations and we have to, do all this other stuff. What's the reaction from the school teachers union and the staff in general, if I may ask?
Yeah, I know you're not.
Because that concerns, because Jay, it concerns me.
Oh, of course.
You did a great job negotiating the last contract. 9% over 3 years is outstanding. I sent you information that showed how well you did compared to other districts in the state, and so I'm just curious what the reaction is.
I certainly can't speak for them. I have talked to leaders of the Teachers Association since that meeting. I put out a survey to teachers, basically putting those research findings before them to see if what I just told you as a committee is accurate. And I am going to guess that it is very accurate, that teacher pay, given where we stand, is incredibly important. So yeah, I think Friday did not boost morale. I think that's safe to say.
Thanks, James. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's great. So back to FY27 level service, I want to be clear that this is level service based on FY26. FY26 is not our most healthy financial year we've ever had. We are not filling requested positions for FY27, so that would be 6.5 positions that were requested to strengthen what we do currently. We're not bringing back any of the reductions that were made going into FY26, totaling about $610,000. That was $162,000 in non-personnel and 6.5 FTE. We're not bringing back 5.5 FTE in terms of personnel reductions. I am requesting or hoping that that HR director position will come to fruition. The money is set aside. It's within the FY27 budget. It's not going to shock me if we don't have needs that come up, especially special education needs between now and July 1st, that we're just going to have to prioritize over the HR position, but I've got my fingers crossed. So that level service budget, just to be clear, does not include adding reduced positions back, doesn't replenish our saving, does not add any of the requested positions. And basically, we're going to certainly always try to be better, but there's nothing in the FY27 budget that's set aside to make us better, if you will. Nothing new.
May I ask a
Yes,
question?
fire away.
So 6.5 that was request for 27, and then 6.5 that was reduced. So in an ideal world for us to be operating where we would like to be, we should be at the 13, the net 13.
Correct.
Say from 25 till now, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Correct. Despite all, I feel like I'm being a little too negative, but despite all that, with the level service budget, I 100% believe that we as a district can maintain the exceptional return on investment and keep moving forward as we are. I'm sorry. I can't. Can I call on you? Screw you. Can I call?
Please, Dan.
Yeah, so I guess it really sounds to me like this is not really a level services budget. Like, we cut things last year, and now, so what was considered level services last year, we cut from that, and now we're saying, well, this is like the new level services. But we're also not including those other 6.5.
Right.
So it really, I feel like it needs to be emphasized that this is not actually level services. It's, we're reducing things and we're going to work really hard to try to, achieve the same results. But it's with cuts from last year and with, not strictly cuts if they're requested, but it's not the things that our superintendent, the expert on what our school district needs, says that we need. So to me, it feels like it's calling this level services really kind of
It's a stretch.
yeah. It's
Well, it's
stretch
you
services.
got to have a
maybe.
level somewhere, and to try and talk about the prior year, say, okay, we're coming out with a sub-level service. It's
Doesn't roll off the tongue.
no.
I'm finding that true.
But it is a fair point, right?
Yeah,
Every little bit
it
of
is.
attrition you make, it feels like the new normal. But it's a death by 1,000 cuts. At some point, you stop being able to provide exceptional value and provide exceptional service when you
No
continue.
question. This is the leanest we'll.
Right.
Well, that was this year, is like, if we continue
Correct.
on this path, you used 700,000 in savings last year,
Yep.
made a bunch of cuts, like,
Yeah.
Mark, please.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Dan, I agree with you a billion percent. I'm the one that made that statement when we had that joint meeting with the select board last week, that we needed to start somewhere and we needed to set a level to build on the override. And unfortunately, we had to start at FY26. And you're right, 100%. I'd love to put those 6.5 positions back into the budget, make 25 the base year. But we needed to get the support to get the override on the ballot. And the only way that was going to happen is if we set a base level. And unfortunately, we had to use FY26 as that base to move forward. But I agree with everything Dan said, because he's right. 25 should have been the base year, but there was no way the select board was going to take a step back on that. So we really needed to set a new level. And unfortunately, we had to set 26 as that level. At least that was my opinion last week when we did this.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I agree that that clearly was needed, because then from that 26 level, the override number that the select board went with was then reduced from that point even.
Right.
So it's like we're really not talking about level services anymore. There's multiple points at which it's been reduced from that. So
Maybe level service in year one, but to your point, moving forward, it's gonna be harder and harder.
Right, down 700,000 over the projection, and we already know from last night that we should anticipate increased uncontrollable prices coming from BBT.
anyway,
It's a good point. Sorry, Dr. Cummings.
That's great. All right. So we've gone over in a broad brush level service budget. We'll now talk about the reduction budget. Obviously, we'll finalize it and present the reduction budget to the school committee on April 7th. In the days leading up to that, obviously, we're going to have personal discussions with the people that are impacted. So this is a very broad brush overview of the reduction plan. So as it stands now, we anticipate needing to reduce what I just talked about by $1,004,000. At the secondary level, we're going to impact world language, music, electives, counseling, and class sizes. At the elementary level, band and chorus will be impacted in class sizes. At the elementary level, we don't have many options, unfortunately. Almost everything that we currently do is required or core. Not that we have extras at secondary, but we have electives. We have things outside of what's required. District-wide, I anticipate us impacting technology, our dwindling curriculum team, and athletics. So fairly widespread, and that's year one. Year two will be class sizes. What I've worked very hard to do and consistently have with reductions is you want to, and this isn't really unique to Grafton, guys. This, you can look at Northbridge, anybody that's gone from functional to dysfunctional, this is how it plays out. Year two is more, you have to hit lower elementary. I'm going to do our very best pre-K through 3 to maintain the class sizes we have, supports, etc. But you can't avoid it in year two. You just can't. In terms of the future, if we go down, if the choice is made and we're going to go down this road, I've talked about what's going to come up in terms of financial impact. That's going to be school choice revenue decreases. I'll talk a little bit more about that momentarily. And out of district costs with fewer supports, larger class sizes, undoubtedly is going to rise. About 1% of our students go out of district. That number will undoubtedly go up. And those costs are significant. I just talked about it, but then class sizes increase pre-K to 2. right, the way it stands with the plan today, I'm going to try our very best to pre-K through 3 protect as much as we can, but class sizes will go up in 4 and above. This was something I put together today, so it's super, super rough, but it was just the idea going back to the cost. Now, that original slide I had about the cost either way. Like, vote to have an override, your taxes go up, but not having an override and having that play out has a real cost. So just out of curiosity, I was playing with this and thought you might find it interesting. So on the left-hand side, if we have an override, and let's say, well, if it's the 5 years, 5 million, let's say it's $1 million a year townwide, and we being the schools, are going to get 700,000 of that. I'm just making that number up. If that's the case, over those 5 years on the school side, we'd bring in 3,500,000. If we become dysfunctional and have large class sizes, we don't have the supports, we don't have music programming, we don't have any of that for numerous years, I pretended it's not going to have an impact next year on school choice. I can guarantee you school choice goes away. There might be a couple that just hang on, but that parent who's going from whatever town they are in the area that's dysfunctional, waking up extra early to go and drop your student off at our school so that they can join that class of 30 with no supports, it doesn't work. So they don't go. And we're, instead of having only 60 kids in Grafton go to other schools through school choice, that number goes up. So that revenue goes away. That 900,000 a year that we bring in through school choice will undoubtedly go away. Then what? I can tell you what happens. That's going to fall on the operational budget and the taxpayers, and that's just school choice. You add that up over just 4 years, that's 3,600,000. So that cost isn't just home values, it isn't perception of the town. There's going to be, and I'll have time to work through this, but going back to those 2 trends, the out of district, I'd have to guess, and I can provide an array of guesses. I can look at the numbers in Northbridge and how that played out, but we will end up, I'm 100% sure, and over the next few weeks I'll work on quantifying that, but the cost of not having an override will be greater to the town than maintaining what we do right now. I have zero doubt about that. To see this, how it plays out, you don't have to look far. You can look to Northbridge. Back in 2006, they were faced with very much the same scenario. And their override failed. They haven't had a successful one since. So in those 20 years, they have struggled with this. They used to be a top district in central Massachusetts. And not that they still don't have fantastic staff. Their superintendent's great, like great people doing great work, but they are struggling mightily in this cycle that I've been talking about to you probably countless times. It's very expensive to run a dysfunctional district. People think it isn't, but for the very reasons I outlined, when you look at apples to apples per pupil, if we had Northbridges per pupil, we would get a check for $2,700,000 a year. That's a lot of money, guys. It's expensive to be dysfunctional. So just last slide for us, the real question before us, which cost does the taxpayer prefer? I see a yes vote is the taxpayers making a, it's hard. Taxation, I'm a taxpayer in town. I don't love taxes, but without a doubt, a yes vote is an increase in cost. And without a doubt, and we've been pretty good at stretching overrides, but whether it's 5 years, 6 years, whatever it is, unless something changes systematically in the state, I assume, like openly, that we're going to have to continue some level of investment. And if no, as I've been speaking to, the costs associated with maintaining a dysfunctional school district are greater and will in the end require more funding. I am 100% sure of that. I'll get off my soapbox and take any questions you may have.
Can you just speak to that a little bit, as
Sure.
far as like why? Because if we lose school choice, obviously, then we have to make that up somehow. But basically, what happens when you become dysfunctional?
Yep.
Can you just speak to that?
Well, school choice is just one example that
Right.
we bring in. I think people know that we have school choice and think maybe it's a good thing. That's $900,000 that we bring in to offset taxation. That's a great thing. When that goes away, and you said, and I'm not like turning this on you, like you got to find it somewhere. That's in the operational budget. There are no more rabbits in the hat that I have. That's a pretty big rabbit. That goes away. Not only does the 900,000 go away, once you become dysfunctional in pre-K through 12, we've got class sizes at 27 to 30. We're going to have kids school choicing out of Grafton in far greater numbers than we have, and that money comes right off the top out of Chapter 70. We don't even see that, so the impact is going to be greater than the 900,000, no doubt about it. Once you have class sizes of 27 to 30, and you have to start reducing staff more, we've got really good supports and programs to keep kids in our district, and we're super proud of that. That's great. Once that gets threatened, those students get placed out of district because their needs can't be met in district. The students that we had moving in, every one of them was over 200,000 just in tuition for out of district. That's one student, and that's without transportation, which is typically individualized or small group. It's very expensive. So you're talking per kid, let's say conservatively 250,000. We increase by 10 kids out of district would be more the area norm. I do the math, and that's 2.5 million. And it just keeps going. And then what districts will do is, like Northbridge had an override, I think last year, an attempt, it failed. It's not to catch up because the cost would be astronomical. They just are trying to limit the bleeding, if you will. Franklin put an emergency, it fails, and they put an emergency one. But again, it's not to get them back to any semblance of what they were. Once you lose it, it's gone. And and they weren't in, I'm sorry, I guess I had too many slides. They weren't in this position. Like, we don't have any margin left where some districts can take a hit, and they've got layers of supports. They've got layers of curriculum people, and that's great. I wish we did. Specialists, like extras that we consider extras, because we would love to have those positions. We just don't have them. But you would cut that layers and layers of administration. We obviously don't have those. We're just so lean that cutting further, we're so close to the cliff year in, year out. There are only 12 districts that are as close to the cliff as we are. Even Northbridge is, I told you what they're spending. They're the closest to us, and the difference is 2.7 million a year. Imagine if we had a check for 2.7 million a year. It's
We wouldn't be
crazy.
here right now.
And that's Northbridge, and Northbridge statewide is like peanuts.
And they have only 60% of our students. For
Correct.
student-
And just to be crystal clear, that per pupil is apples to apples in terms of everything spent on education divided by the number of students. I don't know if I answered your question. I'm really soapboxy today.
No, well, you should be.
So, per kid out of district is 250,000. Per kid in district for school choice, is it 1-to-1? Is it also 250, or is it? I'm assuming less.
That was for special ed, right? Out of district. So it's
Yep. I want to
school
be
choice.
careful,
Okay.
Kyle. I can find what the number is in terms of our average. I was using the number
Sure.
of 250. That wouldn't be unusual. We have some that are far more than that, and some, especially collaboratives, that are less. It might be 100,000. So I just want to be clear on that. Well, tell me the second part.
for kids that come into the district?
Yep.
Is it 1-to-1? Is like is it 250K out and 250K in if it's the same?
Oh, if we bring in,
Yes.
if we
Yes.
tuition in a student, it depends on what the program is. More expensive for intensive medical needs, where we might have a nurse. Sometimes the sending district will pay for that nurse, and the tuition say 100,000. Generally, I'd say the average for that is probably 100,000 in total.
So I guess as I'm thinking through, I mean, this year is this year where we're at. But if we're thinking about the future and us making an investment in ROI, I mean, are there things we could be adding to the district that would be bringing in kids from other schools that it almost, I don't say offset 1-to-1, but, can we make the district more attractive where, the additional investment could be obviously offsetting potential losses later, but also we're bringing in more. I know we already did with the medical program, the curriculum medical fragile, yes. But are there other things we could be doing if we had more investment? And maybe this isn't a thing to answer today, but I think that's like,
Yeah, it's not a bad question. We'd have something probably, I remember Nicole McDonald, our special ed director, more programming around social emotional challenges at the elementary level. If we go down the reduction road, I'm not saying it's going to be right, instantly we lose those out of district students, but it's going to be, that will be a challenge, maintaining those. That's just part of the cycle. We're doing great with them. A lot of it, like, we can't, I don't know how to, somebody mentioned like going to get kids. It doesn't really work like that. You're not saying that, but it's more through like Nicole McDonald's connections and going to maybe collaborative meetings where a local collaborative, they're full, we're close, they don't have it, like they're dysfunctional and they don't have the programming, and they'd rather send somebody, a town or two over as opposed to going to a specialized school that might be an hour and 10 minutes each way. So it's more like people aren't recruiting Grafton kids. And I want to be clear, I'm not out there, with a sign, come to Grafton. But if you build it, they'll typically come, and we've got to capitalize on economy of scale. Some of our programs are at capacity, and we just can't take anybody in. So it's been a nice plus this year for sure.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where my mind is like if there are needs that aren't being met elsewhere around, if we build it, they come, and that's a way to,
Eventually, my hope is to be more like, it won't happen in my lifetime, but to get to like a Shrewsbury level. Shrewsbury, if you looked at their per pupil, I mean, they're below the state average, but they're ahead of where Northbridge is. So it would be like we get a check for $4 million. But if you look at the whole state, they're certainly not next to the cliff. Nobody rides that cliff better than us. So they're a safe distance from the cliff, but that return on investment, while ours out of desperation is awesome, that's where you want to be, where they have, I mean, I was the assistant superintendent, granted it was like 17 years ago, and I say it all the time, but under me, I had a good, at least 15 people focused only on supporting curriculum and teachers, etc. So our department was around at least 17 for curriculum, teaching, and learning. And in a school system, that kind of makes some sense. Here we have 2. We had 6 a couple of years ago.
And people would say Shrewsbury's a lot bigger, but what is the actual size difference?
It's
Like,
twice as big.
so you maybe would have 8 instead of 17.
Yeah. Well, not
7.
looking, but that
Right.
idea, and that's just
Yeah, no, but I'm
one
just
topic,
saying that
but,
people will say like, oh, but they're bigger, so we don't need that many. But like, even relative to that, like we have 2, and we should have 8 if we were
nobody's
equivalent in
as lean
size.
as we are. They're
Right.
just not. But we're lean to a fault.
Yeah.
We just are.
Yeah,
And we'll not get there, but that would be a great place to be. They've got some options. They've got assistant superintendents. They They have an HR director. They've got supports that are needed, but you could make the argument, and it's a good argument, that right on. Like they're efficient, they're strong, they're able to offer things that we can't offer, not just because of their size, but because of funding.
And I'll also add, the other layer to some of the arguments that we've heard is the pay rates for teachers as well, right?
Let's
So
definitely talk about that.
I'd love to. So why don't we just cut salaries or cut COLAs in the next series of negotiations? For me, listening to you sit here and say we're the leanest in the area, we're approximately the leanest in the state. Nobody walks the cliff better than Grafton does. Laying out how little support in classroom or in curriculum creation or in the rest of the staff in HR that our teachers have, I think that makes the argument for the amount that we pay them that much more important, right?
Yes.
Because points are correct. Pay is not the only reason why someone stays at a job. Absolutely true.
Right.
I could be making twice what I make, but if my boss was abusive, I'd be out the door. Got it. But the bare bones sort of structure and infrastructure that our teachers are sort of faced with at this moment, it's kind of on a precipice, right?
Oh, no
And
question.
I think dangling something like really negative contracts into the future
Right.
could be pushing people towards that ledge.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I think even just
if
the
that actually,
conversation-
that what, as long, well, I don't have a vote, but I will never in a million years advocate for doing away with steps and lanes. Generally, in the world of teaching, there's a COLA that's between 0 and 3% and steps and lanes, which is somewhat inconsistent. Not all of our teachers get steps every year. You get to the top and you're at the top and you're dependent on the COLA. And lanes, that's much more infrequent. That's going to be when somebody goes from a bachelor's to a master's to a doctorate, or a master's plus 60 credits.
That's a life event. I mean, that's
Yeah, there are
and
like
it's rare.
6 lanes, and it's definitely not it's impossible for it to be every year. But there isn't a school district, I verified this, in the state of Massachusetts. I don't know of one in the country, but definitely Mass, that doesn't have steps and lanes. And people cannot like it, but Grafton is not in like an island state in the middle of the Pacific. It's just not. And until it becomes that, it does matter what other districts in the state of Massachusetts are doing. There's a matrix where every year until you get to your 16th year, you stop getting a step. So they get a step every year. They get a COLA, and then I talked about the lanes. What's before you, I took 3 snapshots, and this is those same districts, all of the districts that abut us, and then like that, the next layer outside of that. And I took 3 snapshots. One was bachelor's step 1, that brand new teacher. Here we are in the green. We're above Uxbridge, Oxford, and Auburn. Okay. That red line is where we would be in 1 year of not having steps and lanes, assuming that nobody moves forward, which they will. In 2 years, this is just for new staff, in 2 years, we would, without a doubt, be the lowest paying district in the state of
in
Massachusetts.
2 years.
Yeah, because everybody's moving forward. Like, that's just the way it is. Go crazy, 3 would be, I would bet everything on 2, but in 3, dead last. That brand new teacher that right now in Grafton, they're coming in at 54,000. They can go to Sutton and make 63. Like, I can be charming and try that. I'm getting old, but it's just not particularly competitive. People want and like, as they should, those newer out of school teachers. That's great. If we were really thinking we're going to be like the minor leagues or something, we should make that off the charts and try to hold on to people. But It's not.
Right.
So when people retire, they think, somebody's making, 95,000 and we're going to hire somebody at 54. I can't tell you the last time we've hired somebody right out of school. It's at least a couple of years ago. But it's great. That's the beginning of the career. Middle career, you've got your masters, which teachers have to get, are professionals, and we want to invest in the teachers we have. They're fantastic. This is masters, and you've been with us for 10 years, middle of your career. We're still above, barely, Auburn and Uxbridge, and we're above Oxford. Everybody's above Oxford. Again, somebody's looking at Northborough. I've got, I'm not making this up. We have a teacher from the secondary level last week reached out to me, and they're looking at a position in Algonquin, given all the discussion here. One of our best teachers, and can make 15,000 more every year. It's not just a one-time deal. They're making it the next year. And guess what? In Algonquin, they get steps and lanes. Yes.
I really feel like this is a point that I wish the select board would consider that, like, if we're not paying competitively, that best teacher is the one who's going to leave. And it's like, as a parent and as a taxpayer who wants this town to continue to succeed, I want teachers who are being paid competitively. I don't want to have the teachers who are willing to accept the lowest pay in the state. That's
Me too.
that's
And-
not what I want.
and-
I want to pay the money to have decent teachers.
And I would say that the scenario, it's either that or it's just rampant instability, right? It's folks that are moving to the area last minute who are teachers who are going to jump into an open position but leave the very next year when they've had time to settle in and find a better job. Or it's it's a first year teacher who is again going to leave the very next year after they have their first job out of school, something like that. I mean, that pattern is either right. It's unfortunately maybe not the highest talent, or it just becomes this revolving door of instability, curricular instability, unfamiliar faces for your children. It truly makes no sense.
That's when the HR director looks like those two guys.
That red line is obviously
scary.
where we'll be in a year.
Max.
We'll still be above Oxford, but Oxford is well known, it's not a secret, as being the lowest. So that's mid-career. We get more competitive at the very top step. So the very end of your career, you're in the middle. We should be in the middle for all of these. And
How many?
again,
How many teachers do we have that are in the top step?
I think on the actual top step 2.
Only 2.
Yeah.
That's doctorate level or
Yeah, master's plus 60, and you've been with us 16 years.
easy.
That's yeah.
Yep.
Easy.
16 years. Is
And that's where, that's where we should be. I want to be clear. I didn't handpick Wellesley and
No.
wherever. This is, it couldn't be a more real piece. Like, you see Auburn gets a little more competitive, but in that red line, without steps and lanes, that's where we end up in 1 year. In 2 years, we're going to definitely be the lowest here, if not lowest in the state. So I want zero. Part of that I would never recommend it. Like it, that fix to me is avoiding the real hard discussion, going with the assumption that the schools just they're the biggest, they must be spending too much, and we're going to put it on the back of staff, not just for a year. This isn't, and they've taken zeros. When I first started, all of our staff took, I think, 2 years, definitely 1 year of zero COLA, to get through a tough year. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about doing this indefinitely.
Right, as a way to balance the budget.
Oh yeah, that's have your cake and eat it too. Just don't pay people, and
Well,
they
and-
just love Grafton, and it's low on the list. But it's only low on the list if you're competitive. If you put Westboro and Holliston on this chart, okay, they're pretty close. Maybe it's leadership, maybe it's school culture, the good boss, charming superintendent. That's not where we are.
Right. Right.
Also, municipal employees get steps as well.
Leave
Sure.
us out of it, Angelina.
Everybody,
And
what?
you
We're
want,
not talking about us tonight.
I know we're not, but I feel like
Yeah.
it all,
Should be treated
like we get it all put on the schools, and it is
Right.
the biggest chunk. But we
Right.
also, if we don't pay our municipal employees
yeah,
fairly, then we are also going to lose them, like we just lost Fiona.
sure. As a
someplace
taxpayer, I
else.
want our police. They get a step, they get a COLA, the Quinn bill.
Quinn bill.
But I'm just speaking for myself. I want our police to feel competitively compensated.
Yes,
I consider that fundamental.
Right.
But somehow that goes out the window sometimes.
it does.
And
It does.
the other side of that, though, is if we were to not give the teachers a decent COLA, but give other staff in other departments decent COLAs, that's another issue. So then, do we want all of our town employees to end up being paid the lowest in the area? Like yeah, I don't.
It's
And
negative
it-
feedback.
And one thing that came up about the COLA, facts got a little twisted with the last round of negotiations, and we had the 333 in terms of COLA. And every one of these districts, as I spoke to, has steps and lanes. Every one of these districts had at least 333, and Millbury had 3.5, and they messed with their steps and lanes. Fine, but every single one. Like, it wasn't that we were doing something crazy at all. I wish we were, to be honest. I 100% wish we could be more competitive. It's great for the district that I love. It's great as an HR director. It makes my job a billion times easier. Like, quality hiring and the ability to retain good people, it's almost invaluable. It's critical.
Mark, please.
Jay, to go back to your point on the top step, you have how many teachers?
Sorry. I think we have two. We'll have
No. I'm saying how many total teachers?
about 270.
2 teachers out of 270 teachers at top step.
Yeah.
That's an abnormality. That is not normal across the state, because I'll tell you, in my district, I think we're at 30% or 35% of the teachers are at top step because they want to work to get somewhere and they want to stay in the district, and they're compensated well along the way. The fact that you only have 2 out of 270 is embarrassing, in my opinion. If anybody thinks our teachers are overpaid and our steps and lanes needs to go away, they need to go away, because that's an awful statistic. That goes to show you that you're hiring. Put your human resources director hat on. You're hiring quality teachers. To the fact that you still provide a high quality education when you're not retaining teachers for a long period of time. So your hiring skills are outstanding, Jay, and we're very lucky that you're able to do that. But the fact that only 2 teachers are at top step out of 270, that's ridiculous. So if anybody comes out and says our teachers are overpaid, they don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Well, I think that's reflected in that the average being, after everything I just showed you, is
Why it's low.
81,934. But yeah, that's why. We do have teachers that have been with us for many years on, step 14, 15, what have you. And they're terrific. We should see, we should see a bubble of teachers hitting 15 and 16 over the next few years. But that's a great thing. If we can hire high quality people and retain those people, that's the goal. And we've been doing it, but it's getting more and more challenging.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jay.
I mean, so I have a senior. I have one who graduated. He's 21. I have a senior this year, and I have an 8th grader. And I have to say that, living in Grafton, we came here for the schools, for the train station and for the schools, and then we stayed for everything else. But I think that the people who are going to suffer the most with this are people who don't have the money to send their kids to private school. You know, there's a lot of people who are just going to send their kids to private school when the public school goes, and you know, I mean, just the cascading effect of the school system going down and house prices and all of the things that follow is mind-boggling. But just to talk about my experience, my daughter, who has worked really, really hard, she definitely has, but going to Grafton has given her opportunities that if she was in a school system where it was failing, she wouldn't have had. She got into Clark University. She got a huge merit scholarship that is going to allow us to be able to send her there. The reason, I mean, she worked really hard, but she also was able to take AP courses. She was able to take, you know, get on this track and pass the AP exam, not just take the course, but actually be prepared for it from the class that she was taking. And I know that, you know, last year she lost one of her favorite teachers. He went to Westboro. Like, there's definitely been, we're feeling that. We're feeling, you know, the teacher that left who she really, really liked. And we know it's because of money, because he told them it was because of money, you know? So, like, even in spite of that, like, she's had a very positive experience, I think. And I'm grateful that people in this town have supported the schools and supported the town so far. I just hope that people understand what is happening and choose to support the town again, because you cannot look, it defies logic to look at the spending relative to everybody else and say we're overspending on schools. It defies logic. Like, you are just putting aside that information and saying, I don't believe it, because how can you say we're 16th or 12th from the bottom out of 320 districts, but we're overspending? Like, how can those two things be true at the same time? They can't be. That's not reality. So that's my soapbox.
Very well said. And I should have, I feel like I've been overly negative, but the fact that when I talked about how well we're doing, how we're able to pull it off, that's entirely has been made possible because of the support of the taxpayers for the past two overrides. Everything I laid out would have happened long ago. 100% guarantee that without that support. So
right, and she wouldn't be where she is now. Like, I mean, in a very tangible way, people who have kids in the school district, like our kids' futures depend on the school system staying functional.
Yeah.
Especially for the people who can't afford to send their kids to St. John's or whatever other school they want to send their kids to. So that's what's at stake.
Mark, go ahead.
While I'm on a roll here, thanks, Victoria. Jay, one of the things that people are failing to also understand is being in a hold harmless district, the state really isn't helping matters in Grafton as well, because they're not keeping up with the cost of living. They're not keeping up with the minimum contribution that you have to put up each year, and it's really starting to have an effect. And since 2014, the town's had no choice but to raise these taxes in order to meet, because the state's just not keeping up. They're putting more and more restrictions, not more and more restrictions, more and more requirements on you, and you have to meet those requirements, and they're just not helping. And one last point that I want to make is talking about negotiations when you go to next year, and everybody says we need to, you know, be hardcore on the teachers, and we need to get them to cut their salaries and everything else that we have to do. What would you think the impact would be if they go on strike? What would that do to the district? What would that do to the town? What would that do for your ability to hire teachers moving forward if we have to go through a strike, like districts like Andover and Haverhill and some of those Newton and some of those other districts dealt with? What do you think the impact would be for that?
So much so that we wouldn't bounce back from it. That coupled with the dysfunction that I laid out,
Yep.
What a combination. I don't know how to even put it into words, Mark. It would be awful, and understandable. Like it would be. We should be more. We should be putting every effort that we can into being as competitive as we can, not moving in the other direction. I would consider it a complete failure of leadership, me included.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Jay, I said, and I'm sorry, Victoria, if I can continue. I just want to say again, the negotiations that you've had with the teachers, at least as long as I've been on the finance committee, which I think I'm ending my 9th year this year. I have to tell you, you've been very good. And I said this the other day, the Grafton Teachers Education Association, they have worked really well with you. And that goes to show that your relationship with them is very, very strong. The fact that they're willing to settle on contracts that they know if they went on strike, they get more money because those other districts ended up doing that. So the fact that they're willing to work with you and the fact that you've signed, I think, competitive contracts, not competitive, but contracts that are within the market or under the market level has been outstanding. And I'm going to keep saying it over and over again. You and the school committee should be commended for the contract you signed 3 years ago or 2 years ago, because you're going into your 3rd year now, because it's a very good contract given what was happening throughout the state at the end of COVID. You did a great job selling that contract. And I'll keep saying that until I'm blue in the face.
I appreciate that.
I may say it 3 or 4 more times tonight, Joe.
Yeah, GTA leadership has been terrific to work with. We've true partners with the school committee. So, thank you.
Okay, happy to answer any questions from the public. I don't see any hands online, but okay. Any additional thoughts or questions from the finance committee? Okay. Thank you guys very, very much.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Thank you for putting all that together. It's really eye-opening. Second item on the budget, on the budget, on the budget on the brain. On the agenda is continuing to discuss any topics as they pertain to the override. I feel like that entire presentation was pertaining to the override, right? But I mean, incredibly, kind of circling the square, right? Where I think sort of the last remaining questions were around the school budget, and if we felt as a committee that Jay was doing his due diligence and Kathleen, they were doing their due diligence for next year's budget, and I personally believe that they are.
I think you'd be hard pressed to argue against it. And people can.
You
just
certainly
be hard pressed to.
some people.
Well,
Yeah.
anybody that's trying to argue that is living in the past. I mean,
Or some.
I've said this before, but there's 3 things here. One of them, we cast this in stone 40 years ago by not going to 2-acre zoning. The change in the dynamic of what's required in education and the state formulas to allegedly reimburse us and continue to take and drop stuff on us without so much as a thank you very much. That's what we're stuck with. And in order to keep having a school system that people, I'm not going to sit here and say that we should be attracting all kinds of people here, because it's just going to be more and more and more. But if it's going to cost us this override every 5 years to keep it the way it is, and everybody wants to pay that, that's what this whole thing is about. You go to the town meeting says yes, you go to the ballot box says yes, and off we go.
It's more than
Kinda
that, though.
simple.
It's like if you don't have a town where people want to live there when you try to sell your house because you are at a different stage of your life, or you need to move because of a job or whatever is happening, you put your house on the market. If you are in a failing school district town, or a town that's becoming dysfunctional on the on the municipal side of things as well, then that's going to be harder to sell your house. Like, this is all just
Yeah, it's
it all has consequences, like
Right.
Jay said. Yeah.
I think the Northbridge example is so important, right? It costs them what would be the equivalent of $2.7 million for us more a year just to maintain sort of the level that they hit when they did not reach their override, right? It's more expensive for that school district once they became quote unquote dysfunctional.
Yeah.
So it's the sort of backwards waterfall plot that he showed where we would be compoundingly losing almost $1 million a year from school choice once we hit that level of dysfunction, right? A lot of these questions are around how do we continue to raise revenue. We will never raise $900,000 a year in school fees from sports, but we are looking down the barrel of losing $900,000 a year by letting our schools fall into dysfunction, and not to mention the intangibles of not being able to educate your children and foment community in a way that only a school can. It's a poor investment to let your town fall into disarray.
But there's also the reality of the state putting mandates on us and then not
Sure.
funding them, like saying we have to
Absolutely.
send more kids to BVT,
Right.
which is, I will someday learn to stop saying things out loud before I've like really thought them through. I'm
I
not
hope
sure
you-
when that will
hope you never
happen,
do.
but eventually I'll get there.
That wouldn't be you, Angeline, if you did, so don't change.
Just brutal though. When I was my first reaction to BVT last night was, oh my god, that's a nightmare because it's going to change BVT, and then I realized, wait a second, this is what I've been complaining about
Yeah.
for 4 years, like literally. For it to become, I guess in my mind, it was like, keep BVT the way it is, but can we also have this? Like I wanted, so when it was, like I just didn't really think it through, but, if we can help kids who need a technical school who wouldn't have gotten into BVT through the interview process to have a chance at doing that, I do think that it's going to be a positive overall. However, I did the math, and 12 extra students is a lot of money a year, over the next 5 years to get up to what we need to get up to have the number of students that we're supposed to have there. So
$1 million
it's just
every
another
4 years.
cost that the state is putting on us. And I think we recognize that that's what's happening. And I think that we need to be, the select board or the school board needs to be petitioning the state and getting out there and trying to change things, because that is definitely a problem. Unfunded mandates are a problem.
Absolutely.
And to put it back on the taxpayer is tough, but there isn't a choice until we can get it resolved different, until the state does something different, unfortunately.
Greg, please.
Yeah, so when Proposition 2.5 was passed back in the early 80s, 1982, the state aid to Grafton as a portion of our expenses was 32.5%. Last year, it was 18.5%. If we had 32.5% of our budget received in state aid, it's an additional $12 million that we could either add to budget or return to the taxpayers. We could reduce our taxpayer budget, our taxpayers' taxes by 20% with that kind of money.
That's the whole problem, Greg. I'm so glad you said that, because that's the point I was trying to make earlier. The state isn't keeping up with inflation. They're not keeping up with even Proposition 2.5.
Yeah.
If they just gave us 2.5% a year in Chapter 78, we'd be in a better position.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Northbridge gets $3 million more in Chapter 70 aid for 60% of the students. They get $4,000 per year extra last year compared to us. Again, that $4,000 per student times 3,000 students is $12 million. The state would have to increase our aid by $600 per student to cover our budget shortfall this year. That's it.
solution to teachers' salaries.
Yeah.
No,
Thanks, Greg.
said that last week.
May I ask a question about, obviously this predates me, but the Sustainability Commission that existed years ago, like,
It's
how
very quiet. I can't hear who's talking.
He's not gonna ask a valid question, so that's okay.
I can make a good answer.
But what happened with that commission and what,
Angelina and I can talk about that.
yeah, because like obviously I think a big takeaway from this 5-year, 5 million was somewhere mixed in there was, oh, we can figure out a way to fix this by year 3, but unfortunately that does not seem possible in any right state of the mind. So what did happen with the Sustainability Commission, and like what can we do to like revive that? Because again, we keep complaining we're override dependent, but like action needs to happen now, not once we're through all of this, right? So like what was the background, what happened there, if anyone could?
Angelina, you want to take that one?
Sure. I mean, I don't think that we should revive that committee. I think that the idea that was put out of having an independent committee that has nothing to do with any boards in town or anything, to just look at like cold hard facts, finances, you know, is able, maybe has the means and the resources to effectively compare things. I'm sure AI can help with the comparisons too, but like you have to be really careful.
It doesn't work.
As
very
with
well.
anything, it doesn't. Okay, so what we ran into was it it was like apples to, you know, umbrellas when you're trying to compare things. And you know, going back to the DESI numbers, at least those are like everybody does it the same way. There was just a lot of difficulty in comparing districts. I mean, we I think we were together for about a year, maybe shorter. I don't know. Mark, did you want to add anything?
I predicted.
Yeah, I think the problem that we had was there was just so much going on at the time, and we were trying to do as much benchmarking as possible. We were trying to figure out who to compare Grafton with. We were trying to put together all the documentation, and unfortunately, we sort of ran out of time. And I think that was just about the time that COVID hit,
Yeah.
and it really sent us, and it just sort of ended us. We couldn't really do much at that point. So I don't know if we would have made a difference, but it fizzled out after a year because of the problems that we had with COVID. I'm sorry, the Bruins just scored. They're up 2-0 for those of you who are wondering what that was.
Yeah, I feel like it just really needs to be independent of anybody in town, though, in order
I
to,
agree with that. I agree with you, Angelina.
you know, to have people accept the information instead of just like pushing things aside because they don't agree with their narrative. And I'm fully open to, please, like, please, somebody for the love of God, put this into a format that is like easily digestible, that we can, you know, compare and see where we stand. I fully believe the DESI numbers that we see as far as what our rank is and everything, but like, you know, on the town side, where do we stand with how we're paying people and all of that kind of stuff? I would love that information from an independent source.
That's a data mining thing, and unfortunately, that reference is probably the only place you're going to get any data mine to exist. You'd have to create all the other stuff, because you go out there and they're doing this stuff, they're going to find like 8 million rabbit holes to go down and think that they're off on something.
Well, somebody's
By the
got to
time
do
they're
this
done, it's
like
like,
professionally,
this isn't even
right?
close.
Somebody's got to be.
Or even if we reach out to like local colleges, right? Like there are kids in college that need this real world experience, right? Like I get it, like throwing around consultants, but again, consultants come at a premium, right? And I think like we need to be savvy and we need to start forwardly thinking about this, because like, you know, the Northeasterns of the world, the various other colleges, we have a great educational higher ed systems here. Like there are probably students that would be very much involved and could do this for us, like versus a consultant, because it is data mining, right? It's gathering it all, right? And it is an independent look, right? Because where I just worry is like a lot of the stuff now that we're talking about, like we're going to be behind the 8 ball pretty soon. And when I say soon, it's probably going to be in a year, right? Because this 5 and 5 number, like by year 2, who knows what happens to the 5, right? So that's where I'd be curious what we can do to really like kick the tires on that. But
I think it's a great suggestion.
Madam Chair.
Of course.
So one of the things, I mean, we do benchmarking with the 14 communities that you had in your original study. We do salary and wage look backs pretty consistently. We haven't done a full salary and wage study since I started, which was in 2020. We started the process in 21, but we finished it in 22. Correct. All that data is already outdated because there's such a small pool to draw from that every town around us, actually not even around us, the catchment's gotten a lot larger. We get blown out of the water because when you're trying to hire a town planner and you get 0 applicants, you then go, all right, well, we'll add 10 grand to it, even though we're about level with what everybody else around us. And now that 10 grand more attracts a candidate, and that's now your baseline for every other community around you that has to try to hire somebody. Right? So how many applicants do we have for a town planner?
0.
But Evan, salary doesn't matter. That's the bottom of the list that gets people. I don't know what you're talking about.
So one of the things that
Just be more charming.
thank you, Mark.
You are charming, and you are Evan.
Thank you. We try. I mean, we going back to the schools town salary thing. So our average salary increase on the town side is 4.5%. One union in the last so each union in the last cycle got 3% increase. So that means that one group of people was at a 5.5% increase over the year before. The reason our data looks better than the schools consistently is that we have 117 employees, give or take, and they have 354 or something like that.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly. So it's just the economy of scale, really, right? So ours looks a lot narrower. But we are finding through our exit interviews that, the people that are leaving because of opportunity. Some of it's because I think we do a really good job of promoting growth on our side and getting people educational opportunities and having them be it's a incubator almost to move on to something else, and that's fine. But what we're seeing in our exit interviews is that we're a wonderful place to work. They love it here. They would come back if they could, but they're gonna make more somewhere else. And that was our last 3. I've lost 3 department heads in 4 months, and that's gonna continue to happen. One, because we all are in the same pond, right? And there's not a lot of staff, so I get it. But I just think that we have to be competitive. We have to create that work environment. And I think Jay's doing the same thing on his side of his. Sorry, Dr. Cummings doing it on that side of the house.
Be respectful.
But I know I slip every now and again. But I think that I'm gonna tie this back because I got off track a little bit. We do the benchmarking. The benchmarking is very hard, and not because the data is hard to get. The data, DLS has a fantastic website. You can get data, as much data as you could ever want to see. The problem is that every single community you look at has some kind of uniqueness that makes it really hard to compare yourself to, right? So, we're going to look at we're going to look at the Northbridge schools, right? And we're going to compare that to the Grafton schools. But they have 60% of the students we have, so even the per pupil spending, well, that gets a little skewed a little bit because they have a different economy of scale. All right, well, we're going to look at this next town over. Okay, well, they have 3 school buildings, we have 6, right? Almost same number of kids. It gets really finite, and it gets really hard to look at how that data actually does anything for you when you have it. And so I think a lot of it, I agree with you, Angelina. When I look at schools, it's that per pupil spending because it cuts through a lot of the other nonsense that you then start to see when you start to try to drill down on this stuff. And I come from a district that did not fund 10 years ago what they should have been funding. And the community has no growth. Can't get any commercial business at all. Like my 9-year-old's class is 14 kids, and it's 14 kids not because we have great funding. It's because there's only 28 kids left in the grade.
Wow.
Right? Yeah, it's horrendous. So now my town's looking for an override. They should have done this override 10 years ago because you're never going to get that back. All the growth that we had that made it an attractive place to live is gone. And so, to Angelina's point, when you go to sell your house, your house values here, home values here, they're a little higher because you have other opportunities. You have a transit station, you're closer to Boston. But honestly, for a community like Grafton or a community like Munson, where I live, that are predominantly a place for people to live, they're a bedroom community, they live and work somewhere else. If your school system takes a hit, that's the most attractive thing that you have going for you at any given time. So, I mean, I'm in the boat of what Angelina was talking about. We're shopping private schools, we're shopping, school choicing into somewhere else, or we're shopping moving. Right? And so,
We'd welcome you in Grafton.
I was
yeah,
about to
I know.
Wait till see
I
how
know.
the override goes.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Coming in
see.
hot from Grafton.
Yeah. Well,
We got
I mean,
a train station.
honestly, we've looked, and that's the thing, right? Is your home values here are so much higher than my home value, but you have a lot more going for you, and I just, it's hard to sit back as somebody that doesn't live here and watch these things play out, because I'm hopeful that you don't go down the path of my town, because it's not a good place to be, Although my house was $330,000 when I bought it 4 years ago, and here it's about $1.2 million. So you got that too, right? So it's interesting. It's just hard to compare. It's like actually where I started. That's where I was gonna say,
It's hard to compare.
and then I've talked for 10 minutes straight. But I did spend the day with all 12-year-old girls, so I got to be able to talk now.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
It was all pent up for so long.
Yeah, I
They're not
followed.
interested in talking about home values.
No, I
or-
followed 3 girls around Mystic Seaport, and I said at least 10 things out loud that no one acknowledged.
Were any of them apportionment?
Humiliating.
I tried to explain apportionment.
No, you didn't.
With,
What do you
it didn't
call
go
about
well.
The donuts.
Not even like, what do you think of that store over there? It was like, I honestly was concerned that I had disappeared.
That you were no longer making
Yeah,
sounds.
I was no longer present. But anyways, sorry for the digression.
No, I think it is sort of enlightening to get a perspective from someone that doesn't live in Grafton for just a moment, who also knows what they're talking about. Those two things together are helpful.
Will has also told me I need to correct the statement of I followed little girls around the seaport. to be clear, they're mine.
Your children.
He's just put his foot farther.
Good call, Will.
Yeah.
I don't think people
Thanks-
were here
thanks,
for
Will.
the
Got my
beginning
team's
of that
message lighting up over
conversation.
here.
Like,
Yeah.
Somebody's got to look out for you.
Good call, buddy.
please
Yeah.
clarify those are your children. All right. Last point on the agenda, are scheduling our upcoming finance committee meetings.
But our next meeting is going to be to review the warrant for the town meeting.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Amber,
When does the warrant close, Evan?
Why should we start this?
I wasn't listening. What?
What do we-
The warrant closes on the 21st
First, yeah.
of April,
21st?
which is school vacation week. I don't know if you want to avoid school vacation week or if you would like to
Well, when
meet
do
on
we
the
have to post,
22nd
when
or
does,
23rd.
when does the warrant get posted for the town meeting? Because we have to have our stuff done by then, right?
Yep.
The last
So
day
we get posted about April 17th?
last day to post is
Not
the
even-
24th.
sorry.
24.
24th.
May 4th,
May 4th.
because we have 7 days. So
Oh, it's not 14 days, it's 7 days?
Select board has 14, we have 7.
So then we probably want to meet, school vacation week is tough, so we probably want to meet that following week, right? To do the public hearing?
The week of the 27th?
Yeah, is that enough time or no, Greg?
It would be enough time. Yeah, I think so.
If you can hold the hearing to review the articles on the 29th, then on the 30th, you vote to approve the written recommendations.
That makes sense, Amber. Does that work, Victoria?
How big is the expected warrant?
Oh, this is a valid question.
We have 22 articles on the draft now. but I know there are several more coming.
Of those 22, William, how many of those are the routine standard articles that come up at every town meeting?
10 or 11?
Yeah, I think it's 11.
Okay, 11 of those.
That's
I think we could do it. I think we could probably do it in one night, Victoria.
I think we can do it in one night as well. I agree.
You're also, just to be clear, us posting the warrant versus you having your information is a different animal, because we post it earlier, just the articles, and then we fill in all the rest of it.
All right, so we don't have to have it done by that.
No.
So if we meet on the 29th to vote on our recommendations, or to review, we
The
can
29th would be the public hearing.
the public hearing, correct?
That gives us one day to do our recommendations because we have to post the following Monday.
That gives Amber and William enough time to write our recommendations, right?
Yeah, if that are for us to take it overnight.
I mean, I wouldn't plan on starting them on the 30th. I could have those going before
Yes.
your public hearing.
Well, Amber, that's why I asked how many of the articles are routine that come up every
Yeah.
year.
Are there citizens petitions this time or?
We haven't gotten any. The deadline is this Friday, or I'm sorry, next Friday, not this Friday.
Okay.
And I don't think that we've heard of any that we can expect to come in.
Yeah, we haven't had anybody approach our office to have assistance with it. Doesn't mean someone won't submit, but
Right.
usually we have a pretty good idea that one's coming.
I think the 29th works, Victoria.
So 29th for the public hearing and 30th to approve the recommendations.
I think that's
All right, if everyone's comfortable with that,
Exceedingly.
exceedingly comfortable.
Skip, you're reading a
The
dictionary
30th
again?
I gotta do something. Sitting around twiddling my thumbs all day.
I'm sorry, Amber. What?
The state of the town message. If we can get a draft to review on the 29th and then finalize it on the 30th.
Okay.
I'll give you a heads up.
All right, I'll try to have that ready by that Monday, the 27th, so official review can take place on the 29th, and then the final on the 30th. That works for me.
With regards, if I may, Victoria, with regards to the state of the town message, I think it's important, but I don't think it needs to be as lengthy and as much information as we put in every year, just because 20 years ago, the first one had all these steps in it, and we've sort of kept that going all the time. I think we can probably cut back on it a little bit and still have a very powerful message.
This is feedback that I received last night as well, Mark, and I've taken it to heart. I
Oh,
promise.
really? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I
promised to
didn't.
edit
I
myself.
apologize.
For this particular state of the town message. I understand.
It's like you were here.
Oh, and I wasn't. I swear to God. So obviously, great minds think
That's
alike.
it.
just to be clear, you're the great mind you're thinking alike is Skip.
Skip. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Now let me rethink my position on this now.
Look, it's not the first time I've been told I talk too much, so.
No, it has nothing to do. It's been the same message for the 9 years I've been on the finance committee. We
You're
just
not wrong.
changed the numbers.
You're not wrong.
I
you're
think
not wrong.
let's
You
come
gotta
up with
get-
something
you gotta get,
different.
like that applause track, and then when you're halfway through, we can just start playing that.
Just playing
Like,
the,
right off, play you off the stage.
grab
yeah.
the giant paint.
That was, so I just want
Wrap
to
it up,
say,
son.
I think he subconsciously watched the meeting last night because that was virtually what I said.
Is it really? Oh God.
Sorry.
No, I was at another meeting last night, so sorry I did
No,
not see
man.
last night's meeting.
Shenanigans.
I'll do something novel. We're gonna totally punch it up.
One page.
One page,
An interpretive
Double
dance.
space.
double spaced,
Just bullet
12
points.
fonts.
Bring in those margins like you're in 8th grade again.
Yeah, gotta get more pages out of that term paper.
36 font.
36.
You know how to do it.
It's gonna be 4 words.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna try.
We are in trouble. There you go. That's a perfect state of the town. We are in trouble if the override doesn't pass. That's the state of the town message, Victoria, right
Honestly,
there.
You're not wrong. All right.
So I will possibly be remote for the meeting, or I may miss it, the one on Wednesday, because that's show week for Westboro Community Chorus, and I'm on tech for that. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay. Oof. I don't like it when you're not there, but understood.
What are the dates again?
The 29th and the 30th of April. I need Greg to tell me how to do things.
I'll be in a great mood that night because I get an eye injection earlier that day. So
Oh,
Oh, geez.
that's gonna be a lot of fun.
we're gonna have a grand old time.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Add on.
Should we take a motion?
I'll motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All right, because we have remote committee members. We'll take by roll call. Heather,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Samir,
Aye.
Skip,
Aye.
Angelina,
Aye.
Kyle,
Aye.
Victoria's aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate your time this evening.